I never imagined there would come a day when I'd sit in front of a bowl of rice and hesitate to lift the spoon. It wasn't because I lost my appetite, or because age had made me picky. It was because I realized what was in that bowl wasn't meant for a human being. I stared at it for a long time. A dark brown mush, with a foul smell that clung to the air, mixed with something like old grease and cheap meat. I didn't have to taste it. I knew that smell far too well. It was dog food, and the person who brought it to me, calm face, light voice, was none other than my daughter-in-law. My name is Walter. I'm 79 years old. I've lived my whole life by a simple principle. Don't bother others. Don't become a burden. I used to be a carpenter. These hands of mine once shaped wood, built tables, framed doors. I built this house with care and kindness. Every stair, every coat of paint carries my touch. When old age crept in, I chose to step back. I let my son and his wife move into the house, and I moved to a smaller place near the park, somewhere quieter for windy afternoons. A few years later, my wife passed away. Not long after that, I fell down the stairs. The fall injured my hip and weakened my right hand. My son offered to take me in, to help take care of you, he said. I didn't want to intrude, but I didn't really have a choice. So I returned to the house I built with my own hands. But things weren't the same. I was no longer the man of the house. I had become the quiet old man in the corner of the kitchen, an inconvenience tolerated out of politeness. And when they started feeding me the same way they fed the dog, I knew it was time to do something, not out of anger, but to remind them. Silence isn't weakness, and respect, once lost, rarely returns quietly. I don't remember the exact moment I fell. Just flashes, golden light streaming through the kitchen window, shadows falling across the old wooden stairs I had built nearly 30 years ago. That day, I only wanted to grab a jar of apple jam from the kitchen, the one Margaret used to love spreading on toast. A simple task, but at 79, nothing is truly simple. As I took the first step down, dizziness struck. My vision blurred. Everything tilted, like a dream unraveling. I reached for the railing, but it was too late. I heard a sharp crack. Then my body hit the cold, hard floor. Not pain, numbness, as if my body had come apart. I tried to call for help. Luckily, a young couple living next door heard the noise and called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor said I had a hairline fracture in my hip, a severely stretched ligament on the left side, and heavy bruising on my right arm from the fall. You shouldn't live alone anymore, the doctor said, his voice gentle but firm. You need someone with you day and night. I nodded, not out of fear, but because, for the first time, I realized solitude was no longer a safe option. I used to think I was still fine, cooking for myself, doing laundry, driving to the store every week. I believed independence was the last thing I truly had control over in my 70s. But maybe I had overestimated myself. Later, Matthew, my son, came to pick me up. His wife, Jessica, and their little dog Toby came with him. Jessica opened the car door for me, but not without scanning me from head to toe. You can't live alone anymore, Dad, she said, her tone flat. I nodded. There was no reason to argue. After all, the house they lived in, the one we were heading to, was still under my name. That house used to be the home Margaret and I built together, where we raised Matthew, planted roses by the porch, and shared dinner under warm light every Saturday night. After Margaret passed away from heart failure, the house felt too big, too empty, so I moved into a small apartment near the park. I gave the main house to Matthew and Jessica, not as a loan, but as a gift to help them start married life. No rent, no contract, just a father's trust. They renovated the place. New paint, new carpet, new curtains. Every time I visited, I smiled, even when I noticed the old things. Wedding photos, Margaret's night lamp, her favorite teacup. One by one, they disappeared. No one asked if I wanted to keep them, but I told myself, It's okay. I've lived long enough to know that everything eventually changes. This time, when I walked into the house, I smelled lemongrass oil and a faint scent of disinfectant, the kind that lingers in tidy spaces that feel more staged than lived in. The house was clean, bright, but felt unfamiliar. I no longer knew where my favorite teacup was kept. I couldn't find Margaret's cookie tin on the high shelf anymore. Jessica led me upstairs. "This room's for you, just for now," she said. "There's a private bathroom, and the heater still works." Then, as she turned to go downstairs, she added, "Oh, and please don't let Toby come up. He's scared of strangers." Strangers. I stood there, hand still on the doorframe. I smiled thin, controlled, just enough to mask the sting in my chest. "It's just temporary," I told myself. "Things will settle." But I was wrong. Things wouldn't settle. They were only just beginning to unravel. In the early days, I tried to make myself small, as if the less space I took, the less I'd bother them. I woke earlier than everyone else, stepped lightly so the wooden floors wouldn't creak, folded my bedding neatly, poured myself a glass of water in the kitchen. I believed that if I was polite and quiet, they wouldn't see me as a burden. Jessica was always in the kitchen in the mornings. She liked everything tidy, clean, and exactly in its place. I had no objection, but slowly, I began to notice small changes, the kind only someone who lives in it can feel. No more toast and eggs for breakfast, like before. Just a cold, dry slice of bread on a plate. No butter. No jam. "I've got a Zoom meeting. Just eat this for now," Jessica said, eyes fixed on her laptop. Lunch was instant noodles and hot water. No vegetables, no meat, no flavor. Some dinners were just thin soup with a few overcooked carrots floating in it. I didn't complain. I didn't ask why. I kept telling myself, "It's fine. I've been through worse. I can handle this." But what chilled me to the bone wasn't the food. It was the look in Jessica's eyes every time she placed a tray on the table. I never complained. I knew no one owed me anything. But what hurt me wasn't the meals, it was her gaze. That look no longer tried to hide anything. It wasn't temporary irritation. It was something colder, contempt. As if I were an extra piece of furniture in a house they had already designed to be perfect. One morning, I came down to the kitchen earlier than usual. Toby, their little dog, was eating from a white ceramic bowl under the table. Inside was a thick, dark brown mush. A sour smell hung faintly in the air. I glanced at it, then walked away. I didn't think much of it. Until that evening. Jessica brought me a bowl of porridge. Same color, same thickness, same smell. I stared at it for a long while, then looked up at her. She avoided my eyes. "I made it soft so it's easier to swallow. Old people choke easily," she said quickly, then turned away. I picked up the spoon, scooped a small bite. A faint, rancid odor reached my nose. I stopped. After I heard her footsteps fade, I got up, opened the trash can, and quietly dug through the black garbage bag in the corner. And I found it, a cheap can of dog food, low grade, with bold red letters that read, "Not for human consumption." I sat down, resting my hand gently on the table. Not angry, not crying, just still, like a cold wind slipping through a door I hadn't realized was open. I never thought I'd be treated this way, in the house I built with my own hands. A home that once echoed with my wife's laughter. A home, not a place where pity-filled spoons were dropped off like charity. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay still, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the TV downstairs. Jessica was laughing, probably watching her favorite show. Then came the sound of the bedroom door closing. Matthew had come home. I thought of Margaret, how she used to gently place a hand on my shoulder whenever I was quiet for too long, and I could almost hear her whisper in my ear. Some silences aren't peaceful. They're slow kind of dying. And I knew it was time to stop being silent, not because I was weak, but because I still had dignity. When I was young, my father once told me, if you can't speak with words, let your actions speak for you. But never act out of anger. Act when you're ready. I've never been the type to complain or stir trouble. But this time I knew deep down, if I didn't do something, no one else would. The next morning, I left the house early. I told them I needed a walk to stretch my legs, but in truth, I stopped by the electronics shop on the corner. They still sold old-style phones. I picked a simple model, just needed a camera and a voice recorder. That evening, I hid the phone inside my pajama pocket, fully charged and ready to record. Every time Jessica brought up food, every harsh word, every tired sigh, I recorded it all. Not a single word was missed. At first, I felt ashamed. I'm not the kind of man who spies or collects evidence in secret. But this wasn't just about me anymore. If I were to fall one day, I needed the truth to be known, not a version twisted by silence. I began photographing my meals. Thick porridge in scratched plastic bowls. Some even had faint bite marks. I kept the receipts Jessica threw away. The lines printed clearly. Canned dog food, 3 packs. Pet supplies. On days Jessica went to work, I used the family computer in the living room to send emails. I wrote to Aaron Miller, an old friend. He's a lawyer specializing in elder rights. We used to play chess weekly at the community center. I summarized everything, attaching some photos and short audio clips. Just a few hours later, he called me. His voice was steady and firm. Walter, this is elder abuse, and we're going to do something about it. 2 days later, we met at a small cafe a few blocks from my house. I wore a coat and cap, pretending to be out for morning exercise. No one noticed an old man sipping coffee quietly. But really, that was the first meeting in my counterattack plan. Aaron brought a thick folder outlining all the legal rights I still held. I was still the sole owner of the house. I had the right to report abuse. And above all, I had the right to protect my dignity and safety. What you're doing is absolutely right, Aaron said. But we need one more thing, an independent medical evaluation. Can you visit a doctor on your own? I nodded. The next morning, I booked an appointment with Dr. Thompson, my family doctor for nearly 20 years. I told him about my appetite loss, fatigue, weight loss, and poor eating. He didn't ask much, just nodded gently and started taking notes. A few days later, I held a letter from the clinic in my hands. Diagnosis: signs of mild malnutrition. Requires medical supervision. I placed it inside the folder that already contained recordings, receipts, photos, property documents. Part of me still couldn't believe I was doing all this at my age, but the other part knew it too well. Silence was no longer an option. Every night before bed, I opened that folder again, not to feel sorry for myself, but to remind myself I still had the right to choose how the rest of my life would go. I didn't know exactly when Jessica would cross the line, but I could feel it. That day was coming, and when it did, I would be ready. It happened sooner than I expected. That afternoon, Jessica brought up the food tray like usual, but instead of placing it down gently, she slammed the still steaming bowl of soup on the table, sending the spoon clattering to the side. I'm serious, Dad. Maybe it's time you moved into a nursing home. It's too inconvenient here. I kept my eyes on the book in my hands and replied softly, You remember, don't you? This house still has my name on it. She let out a dry, bitter laugh. Your name's on paper, but who pays the bills? Who cleans up every day? Do you really think owning a deed means you can do whatever you want? And with that, she walked away, leaving behind the sour stench of the soup in the air. I didn't touch the food. I quietly reached into my robe pocket and stopped the recording. That night, I called Aaron. It's time, son, I said. My voice was raspy but firm. Aaron understood immediately. We scheduled a family meeting for Saturday. Jessica looked surprised but forced a thin smile. Fine. I'd like to clear the air too. Matthew remained silent, caught, as always, between his wife and his father. Saturday came. The living room looked bright, but oddly cold. Jessica laid out cookies, poured wine, and spoke sweetly. We've all been under so much stress. Let's try to keep things calm today. I stayed silent. Sometimes, silence is the strongest shield you can carry. The door opened. Aaron Jr., dressed in a crisp shirt, walked in and placed his leather briefcase on the table. He slowly opened the latches and pulled out a thick folder. Photos of the meals, scratched plastic bowls, brown mush, receipts, canned dog food 3 packs. Audio recording. Old people and dogs are the same. The images flashed on the screen. Jessica's voice, laced with disdain, played loud and clear. Jessica's face turned pale. Matthew kept his head down. Aaron Jr. continued, placing the doctor's letter diagnosing my malnutrition and a copy of the house title. My name clear as day. Ms. Jessica Hayes, he said calmly, if you do not vacate this house immediately, we will proceed with legal action, elder abuse, property misuse, and emotional harm. Jessica leapt to her feet, shrieking, No, I've taken care of him for weeks, cooking, cleaning. For the first time, I looked her straight in the eye. My voice was quiet but firm. You fed me dog food. The room froze. Only the ticking of the clock remained. I stood up. My knees trembled with age, but my voice was steady. I don't want your apology. I want you out of my life. No one argued. Aaron's briefcase snapped shut. My house deed shone under the light. The decision was clear, and that silence was thunder. After that meeting, Jessica said nothing more. She pushed back her chair with a screech and stormed upstairs. The door slammed behind her like a slap, not to anyone's face, but to her pride. Matthew stayed seated, hands clenched, eyes avoiding mine. After a long pause, he finally whispered, I'm sorry, Dad. I let this go too far. I looked at the son I once pinned all my hopes on, gave my life to support. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't at peace either. Just deeply sad, like dust on a photo frame left untouched too long. The boy I raised now felt like a stranger. The next day, I asked Aaron Jr. to send the eviction notice, 48 hours to vacate. The document was legally sealed, thorough and indisputable. I didn't want a lawsuit. I didn't want a courtroom. I just wanted back what was already mine, and to remind them that respect isn't optional. Jessica screamed when she got the letter. We paid to fix this place too. I'm not leaving. This is my house. Behind her, Matthew slowly placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes weary. Let's go, Jess. This has gone far enough. Toby, the little dog, ran circles around the car trunk, whining softly as if not ready to leave the place he knew. I stood at the doorway. I didn't say a word. Not joyful, not triumphant. Just one feeling rang louder than anything else I'd felt in months, relief. The following week, I began reclaiming the house. Every room had dust, but I wasn't in a rush. I wiped down each frame, placed Margaret's portrait back in the hallway, where morning light still visits faithfully. I moved the old armchair beside the window, next to the little bookshelf. That afternoon, I cooked vegetable soup by myself, for the first time in months. No one else decided what I ate. In the evening, I turned on the old radio. Let Margaret's favorite jazz float through the air again. A soft breeze played with the curtains. The scent of wild daisies from the porch filled the room. I didn't need anyone to know what I had endured. I didn't need pity. I didn't need praise. I just needed to live the rest of my life with the respect I still deserved. A month later, I rented the upstairs to a young family, a couple and their curly-haired daughter who greeted me every morning with a radiant smile. They called me Mr. Walter, naturally, kindly, without force. On weekends, they'd bring over apple pie. Sometimes ask me how to fix an old wooden table leg. I was happy to help, because finally I understood something. No one has the right to turn you into a shadow inside your own home. And sometimes, resistance doesn't need shouting. Just consistency. A recording. A letter. A door closed, so a better life can open. If you've ever felt overlooked, if you've been pushed out of the life you helped build, remember this. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. And you are never too late to rise. Share the story if it touched you. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's the loudest declaration of all.